The autumn leaves drift slowly onto the grey stone walls flanking the Seine River, their fading colours matching the quiet grey mist that settles over Paris as the final light of dusk disappears entirely from the horizon. It is the 13th of October in the year 1307, a remarkably quiet Friday morning that will permanently reshape the political and financial landscape of Western Europe for centuries to come. Across the towns, villages, and open countryside of France, royal guards move through the early morning chill with iron weapons hidden beneath heavy travelling cloaks, carrying sealed orders stamped with the wax seal of King Philip IV. Hundreds of unsuspecting men are pulled directly from their stone cells, warm beds, and quiet scriptoriums without a moment of warning, an explanation of their crimes, or a chance to defend their honour. These men are the Knights Templar, the sworn elite protectors of Christendom and international icons of religious devotion, now facing a sudden, coordinated state arrest. The scratching of heavy iron quills echoes through the cold stone corridors as royal clerks immediately begin to inventory armour, weapons, battle horses, and stacks of leather-bound ledger books. For nearly 2 centuries, this extraordinarily powerful religious order answered to no king, duke, or local magistrate, reporting exclusively to the Pope himself. Yet, within a few hours, their grand urban commanderies are forcefully seized, their heavy oak doors barred, and their highest leaders placed in cold iron chains. The immense international machinery of the medieval world's most powerful and financially independent organization is brought to an absolute, staggering halt in the span of a single morning. A quiet, heavy panic ripples through the locked stone chambers of the Paris Temple as iron-bound vaults are forcefully pried open by the king's men. King Philip's royal financial agents search desperately through the dark corners of the fortress, hunting for the vast, fabled liquid wealth of the warrior monks. Instead of chest after chest of gold coins and jewel-encrusted chalices, they find rows of meticulous account books, property deeds, and bundles of commercial letters of credit. The legendary hoard of physical gold and sacred biblical relics that the public assumed would fill the vaults seems to have vanished or perhaps never existed in the form rumoured. Wild, unsubstantiated rumours begin to spread like wildfire through the dark, candlelit streets of European cities about hidden wagon trains and treasures smuggled away beneath the cover of night. Even across the span of centuries, modern storytellers still spin elaborate tales of secret bloodlines, arcane geometric codes, and the hidden location of the Holy Grail. They search for odd occult symbols carved deeply into the weathering stone walls of ruined Templar fortresses scattered across the countryside. Yet the true secret of their monumental rise and their terrifyingly swift fall was far more dangerous to the medieval establishment than any magical myth. It was written in plain black ink, preserved across thousands of highly practical and mundane financial transactions. The systemic power that directly threatened the sovereignty of kings was not ancient sorcery or hidden relics, but an incredibly advanced, revolutionary mastery of non-physical money. To fully understand how a small group of 9 penniless knights managed to build a global financial empire, we must travel backward through the fog of memory. The year is 1119, and the dusty, sun-baked lanes of Jerusalem are filled with waves of weary, impoverished European pilgrims who have travelled for months across land and sea. Heavily armed bandits and desert raiders wait patiently in the long shadows of the parched Levantine cliffs, preparing to ambush these defenceless travellers on their way to the Jordan River. A French knight of modest means named Hugues de Paynes steps forward from the crowd with a simple yet incredibly desperate and bold proposal. He vows to gather a handful of companions to protect these vulnerable travellers on the treacherous, unpoliced roads leading to the holy sites. Recognizing the desperate need for security, King Baldwin II of Jerusalem grants the small band a permanent headquarters on the sacred grounds of the Temple Mount. They choose to call themselves the poor fellow soldiers of Christ, surviving entirely on the charity of others and wearing garments donated by sympathetic onlookers. Their very first official seal depicts two fully armoured knights riding upon a single horse, a stark visual design meant to emphasise their absolute, binding vow of personal poverty. They are a strange, new human paradox. Monks who carry heavy iron swords, bound by strict religious vows of absolute obedience, poverty, and chastity. For nearly a decade, they remain a very small, isolated local militia, constantly struggling just to secure enough food and basic equipment to survive. The historic turning point for the struggling order arrives upon the cold stone floors of the chapel at the Council of Troyes. In the year 1129, the highly influential churchman Saint Bernard of Clairvaux passionately champions their unique cause before the highest spiritual and political authorities of Europe. He helps them carefully craft a rigid, uncompromising rule of life that elevates their military mission into a holy calling, granting the order immense spiritual prestige. A decade later, Pope Innocent II issues a sweeping, monumental papal bull that completely alters their legal status and transforms their institutional trajectory. The Templars are suddenly granted total, permanent exemption from all local taxes, regional church tithes, and secular legal jurisdictions across the continent. They are permitted by papal authority to build their own private chapels, bury their dead in their own ground, and answer exclusively to the Pope in Rome. Wealthy nobles across Western Europe, deeply anxious about the salvation of their souls, begin donating vast, lucrative tracts of land to the expanding order. Fortified commanderies, productive agricultural farms, sprawling vineyards, olive groves, and watermills are gifted to the Templars from the rainy fields of England to the hot plains of Spain. The once penniless protectors of the highway find themselves transformed into the most trusted, secure, and sprawling institutional landlords in the Western world. The harsh, unrelenting dust of the Holy Land demands an exceptionally elite, highly disciplined standing army if the Crusader states are to survive the surrounding pressures. The Templars masterfully channel the immense, steady stream of profits generated by their European agricultural estates directly into professional military hardware. Heavy European war horses, custom-tailored suits of interlocking iron chainmail, and finely forged steel weaponry are shipped continuously across the Mediterranean to the frontier outposts. The Brother Knights wear identical heavy surcoats of bleached, undyed wool marked on the chest with a brilliant, unmissable crimson cross pate. This highly uniform appearance signifies their absolute, lifelong submission to the collective identity of the order, erasing individual ego entirely. On the chaotic medieval battlefield, they operate with a terrifying, calculated, and almost mechanical precision that completely stuns and disorients their tactical adversaries. Rigid Templar law strictly forbids an individual knight from ever retreating from a fight unless they are outnumbered by more than 3-1. They form the unbreakable heavy vanguard of the Crusader armies, striking like an iron wedge with highly synchronized heavy cavalry formations. Yet, maintaining hundreds of heavily fortified stone castles, towers, and permanent garrisons in the Levant is an staggeringly, almost impossibly expensive endeavour. The massive geographic scale and logistics of this permanent warfare require a reliable, secure method for moving vast wealth across thousands of miles of open wilderness. A wealthy, noble, or a humble pilgrim planning a journey from London to Jerusalem faces constant, deadly threats from desperate highwaymen, corrupt barons, and brutal sea pirates. Carrying heavy leather sacks filled with silver and gold coin across the poorly policed roads of medieval Europe is an open invitation to financial and physical disaster. The leadership of the Templars quickly realizes that their existing network of heavily fortified, permanently garrisoned commanderies can solve this dangerous logistical problem. They systematically invent and implement a brilliant, highly sophisticated system of international, cross-border, institutional deposit banking. A traveller can now simply walk into the secure local Templar headquarters in London, Paris, or any major European administrative centre. They hand over their heavy physical gold or silver coins to a receiving clerk who sits before a balance scale and an open ledger book. The clerk carefully scratches a unique entry into the house ledger and provides the traveller with a heavily coded, uniquely marked letter of credit. The traveller now carries nothing but this light, easily concealed piece of marked parchment across thousands of miles of dangerous, lawless wilderness. If they are ambushed along the way by thieves, the bandits find no gold to steal, for the slip of paper is completely useless to anyone but its rightful owner. Upon arriving safely at their destination in the Kingdom of Jerusalem, the traveller presents the coded document to the local Templar treasury clerk. The resident brothers carefully verify the specific ink markings, checking the secret cryptographic signatures against their own internal records, and release the equivalent value in local currency. A small, standardized administrative fee is deducted for the service of the transfer, a precursor to the modern bank transaction fee. This revolutionary financial credit system operates seamlessly and grows rapidly because the order possesses an absolute, unquestioned international reputation for moral integrity and physical security. Wealthy international merchants, common pilgrims, and high-ranking royal nobles utilize this medieval financial infrastructure with complete, unshakable confidence. The warrior monks have quietly, almost imperceptibly, mastered the complex art of managing abstract, non-physical wealth. Their private ledger books, maintained in quiet monastery rooms, become far more valuable to the long-term survival of the order than any stone fortress wall. The wealth and societal influence of the Templars grows exponentially as they aggressively expand their corporate financial and logistical services. They build and buy their own massive fleets of transport ships, manage the complex distribution of royal dowries, and collect papal taxes across dozens of European dioceses. The great crown princes of Western Europe begin using the fortified vaults of the Paris Temple as their secure, de facto national state treasuries. Monarchs quickly discover that fighting extended, multi-year foreign wars requires far more immediate liquid gold than their local tax collectors can ever hope to gather. The Templars step confidently into this massive financial void, acting as the premier international institutional lenders to debt-ridden kings and emperors. They routinely hold irreplaceable crown jewels and royal properties as physical collateral, and they frequently manage entire royal tax estates to guarantee the steady repayment of their loans. By the late 13th century, the religious order functions precisely like a modern, highly sophisticated, multinational banking corporation. They are entirely immune to local national laws, fabulously wealthy beyond measure, and answerable only to a distant, politically distracted Pope in Rome. To administer this sprawling network, the Templars construct massive corporate headquarters in the hearts of Europe's capital cities. The new temple in London and the Great Tower of the Paris Temple become the beating hearts of medieval commerce. These were not traditional, quiet monasteries filled with silent contemplation, but bustling centres of bureaucratic precision. Day and night, regional administrators arrive on horseback to deliver the profits from provincial grain mills, wool auctions, and vineyard harvests. Inside the secure stone scriptoriums, brother clerks who excel at arithmetic manage massive accounts for foreign merchants and local guilds. They develop complex tracking systems using parchment scrolls that allow the order to balance debts between different kingdoms without ever moving a single physical coin across borders. A merchant in Flanders could settle a debt with a trader in Genoa by simply requesting the Templars to adjust the ledger balances in their respective local commanderies. This creation of an integrated financial marketplace allows European commerce to expand rapidly despite the lack of a unified currency. The order becomes an indispensable pillar of the medieval economy, woven so deeply into the fabric of everyday trade that their presence is taken for granted by both peasants and popes. The fragile political and social reality that protects the order changes dramatically when the Latin Kingdom of Jerusalem falls completely to Muslim forces in the year 1291. The Crusaders are driven entirely from the shores of the Levant, and the Knights Templar suddenly lose their original, foundational military purpose. They retreat fully to Europe, operating no longer from frontline castles, but from their massive, sprawling urban fortresses in the heart of Paris and London. To a stressed, heavily taxed medieval society struggling with economic stagnation, the Templars now look like an elite, insular group with no clear, active mission. They are tax-exempt corporate bankers who possess a private, highly disciplined army, but fight no active religious wars on the borders of Christendom. King Philip IV of France looks across the river at the massive, soaring towers of the Paris Temple with a mixture of growing dread and deep financial resentment. His long, exhausting, and financially ruinous military conflicts with England have left the French royal state entirely, completely bankrupt. The royal crown owes astronomical, unpayable sums of liquid gold directly to the Templar financial treasuries. King Philip realizes with absolute clarity that he cannot easily repay this staggering, mounting institutional debt through any standard medieval taxation means. He also understands that he cannot simply march his army across the river and seize the assets of a holy religious order explicitly protected by papal law. The French crown desperately needs a devastating, absolute weapon that can completely shatter the spiritual armour and moral reputation of the Templars. Philip's closest legal advisors and political operatives begin systematically gathering dark rumours, whispers of heresies, and salacious kitchen gossip from disgruntled, expelled former brothers. They masterfully weave these fragmented, highly unreliable stories into a monstrous, carefully coordinated, and devastating legal indictment. The Holy Knights are suddenly accused of spitting upon the cross during their highly secretive, private initiation ceremonies. The state lawyers claim that the brothers worship a bizarre, demonic, bearded, severed head known in the records as Baphomet. These highly sensational, completely fabricated charges are calculated precisely to deeply shock the medieval public and force the hand of the papacy. The legal trap snaps shut with absolute perfection on that quiet, misty autumn morning in the middle of October in 1307. The arrested Templars are immediately cast into the dark, damp, and unlit corners of royal dungeons scattered across the French kingdom. Royal inquisitors, working hand in hand with state lawyers, use brutal, systematic physical torture to efficiently extract the desired confessions of heresy. Men are stretched upon iron racks until their joints pop, and their bare feet are rubbed with lard and held directly over open hearth fires until they agree to speak. Broken by agonizing, unendurable physical pain and psychological isolation, many aging, legendary knights finally confess to the absurd charges. They weeping signed their names to elaborate fabrications carefully written out in advance by royal clerks seeking a swift, clean conviction. Whether these deeply broken, traumatized men truly understood the long-term historical consequences of their forced words remains a mystery the record cannot answer. The highly sensational, shocking confessions are copied quickly by scriptoriums and distributed to royal courts throughout Western Europe to justify the king's aggressive actions. The trial of the Templars drags on for several exhausting years, turning into a massive propaganda war that shakes the foundations of the medieval world. While King Philip demands immediate execution, many knights attempt to recant their confessions once they are removed from the immediate threat of the torture chambers. They declare before papal judges that their previous statements were entirely false, extracted only because the pain of the fire and the rack was too much for human flesh to bear. In response, King Philip shows his absolute ruthlessness by ordering 54 knights who recanted to be burned at the stake as relapsed heretics on the outskirts of Paris. These men maintain their innocence as the flames rise around them, refusing to validate the king's fabrications even in death. This brutal demonstration of state terror effectively silences the remaining opposition within the order. The trial becomes a chilling display of how an autocratic ruler can manipulate legal structures and religious anxieties to destroy an independent institution that threatens his financial sovereignty. Pope Clement V finds himself trapped in a highly dangerous, suffocating political vice manipulated by King Philip. The papacy itself is structurally weak, and the powerful French king openly threatens a total schism within the church if the order is allowed to survive. Sitting before the assembled bishops at the Council of Vienne in the year 1312, the Pope ultimately chooses the pragmatic path of institutional survival. He officially issues a papal bull dissolving the Knights Templar, doing so explicitly by papal provision rather than by a definitive judicial condemnation of guilt. The vast real estate holdings, farms, and mills of the dissolved order are legally transferred to their long-standing rival group, the Knights Hospitallers. However, the ready liquid cash, gold reserves, and movable wealth of the Templar treasuries are heavily taxed, penalised, and quietly absorbed by the French crown. The grand, borderless financial network that had seamlessly spanned the known world for 2 centuries is completely and irrevocably dismantled. The spectacular, incredibly sudden destruction of the Knights Templar left a massive, echoing, empty space in the human imagination. Because their sensational trial was fueled by such patently bizarre fabrications, generations of people naturally suspected that a deeper, more profound truth was being hidden by the state. For centuries, romantic European writers and modern conspiracy theorists have eagerly filled this historical void with complex mythology and fiction. They systematically imagined the Templars as the eternal, secret guardians of an alternative, esoteric history of the ancient world. Yet, when we carefully strip away the highly imaginative fictional layers of the Holy Grail and secret societies, a far more compelling picture emerges. The real history of the Knights Templar is a grounded, deeply human story of brilliant institutional innovation and systemic power. They successfully constructed a complex financial empire using nothing more than ledger lines, mutual trust, and absolute collective discipline. Their sudden tragic end demonstrates how incredibly vulnerable even the wealthiest international organizations remain when confronted by the raw power of a desperate state. The final act of the tragedy unfolds in March of 1314 on a small island in the Seine River, where the last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, is brought out to face his execution. After 7 long years of imprisonment and psychological degradation, he stands before a large crowd of Parisian onlookers as the executioners prepare the wood for the fire. In his final moments, de Molay finds the strength to loudly recant his previous confessions, declaring to the heavens that the order was holy, pure, and completely innocent of the crimes levied against it. As the smoke rises around him, he issues a powerful curse upon King Philip and Pope Clement, summoning them to face the judgment of God within a year. Whether by strange coincidence or the toll of immense stress, both the Pope and the King die within months of the Grand Master's execution, cementing the Templar legend in the minds of the superstitious public. This dramatic conclusion marks the definitive end of the physical order, ensuring that their story would transition from historical reality into an enduring realm of dark romance and endless speculation. The quiet, abandoned commanderies of Europe now stand as silent, empty stone monuments to this forgotten, practical reality. The soft daylight fades slowly off the crumbling plaster walls, where the bold crimson crosses were once proudly painted by dedicated brothers. The heavy iron lockboxes sit entirely empty in museum corridors, and the vellum ledger books have long since turned to fragile dust in archive basements. Yet, if you choose to look closely at the modern commercial world that surrounds you today, their true, practical legacy remains vibrantly alive. Every single time you hand over a plastic debit card, transfer funds digitally across an ocean, or utilize a line of international credit, you are using financial systems they pioneered. You are walking daily within the invisible, enduring financial architecture that was first sketched out by the warrior monks on the Temple Mount. Their true, surviving ghosts are not hidden away in secret underground societies or ancient royal bloodlines. They are found operating quietly every single hour inside the routine, everyday ledger entries of our global banking network.